China's premier is urging American CEOs to help maintain healthy relations between the two countries. He met earlier with a delegation of more than a dozen US business leaders who have joined President Donald Trump's state visit to Beijing. The White House has said discussions with the Chinese leader are expected to cover trade and investment. They are also highlighting the heated AI race between the US and China. Some of the executives travelling with Trump called today's talks productive and positive.
Cook, how was the meeting?
It was marvelous. Thank you so much. It's so great to be back in China.
Okay, thank you.
The meeting was incredible. President Xi was so gracious, so welcoming, and welcomed all of us to be part of China. And so it was an excellent meeting. Thank you.
Well, you heard there from the Tim Cook of Apple and the NVIDIA CEO. My next guest is a China technology analyst who says Beijing could dominate what she calls the physical AI future. In a recent piece for Time magazine, she wrote, and I quote here, "While American frontier labs are battling each other across large language model leaderboards, China's AI capabilities are showing up in physical ways, leaving screens and entering our daily lives." And Selina Xu joining us live now from New York. And I really liked your piece. I thought it was excellent analysis. Donald Trump says the US is leading China in AI. Scott Bessent said the same thing earlier today. Have a listen.
The US is the undisputed leader in the world here. We have the greatest AI companies. We're actually going to be discussing the AI guardrails with the Chinese. Because the Chinese are substantially behind us, but they have a very advanced AI industry here. So the two AI superpowers are going to start talking.
Okay, so what do you make of what he said? I mean, when you look at the numbers from chip production to patents to deployment, the picture doesn't seem as basic or black and white as Donald Trump or Bessent are making it out. So where do things actually stand in this race?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I think the picture is very complicated. The US obviously leads in advanced AI chips, in capital and model capabilities. We estimate it to be about 6 to 8 months ahead of Chinese AI models based on publicly released models and their benchmark performance. But China is having a very different approach. It is doing a lot more being a lot more focused on embedding AI into various industry sectors. They call it AI plus, and using AI essentially to upgrade its very vast manufacturing base. And this is helped by their open source approach, which essentially means that any user around the world can freely download, modify, use an open source model. So I think these two approaches are showing that the US and China are running very different AI races. And one of the emerging frontiers of AI is physical AI. So we can think of robots, drones, humanoids. And I think China has a great advantage there because of their economies of scale accumulated in the past industry cycles, from mobile phones to electric vehicles. And now they're trying to bring that into that supply chain into robotics.
So let's just have a look at who is there with Donald Trump. The NVIDIA CEO, Jensen Huang, on the trip. He did appear somewhat of a last-minute addition, actually. What does his presence tell you about the stakes of this trip?
Yeah, him joining at the 11th hour, I think, is very much about how tech is hovering at the background of the minds of the two presidents. So H200 sales is probably a key thing to watch out for. They've been stalling for months. So NVIDIA, I think, being there with Jensen there is trying to push for these sales to be accelerated in the Chinese market. Though I've heard in the past that the past few months it's stalled because of some Department of Commerce security reviews. So hopefully if we see that accelerate, this would be quite a key thing that would tilt the balance in the favor of some Chinese companies. But at the same time, I think Jensen being there is also kind of an attempt to try to get NVIDIA's market share in China's AI chip market to not continue to fall. So a few years ago, before export controls, they had 95% of the chip market, advanced AI chip market in China. Now their market share is under 40%. So a lot of Chinese companies are gravitating towards domestic alternatives. DeepSeek's newest model, V4, was specifically optimized for Huawei's Ascend architecture. So he's there to try to stop this sea change from, becoming irreversible.
What about Elon Musk, whose businesses are very much about how we can all use AI embedded in the stuff that we do, including his talk of humanoid robots, electric vehicles and the like. What will Elon Musk's sort of key, what do you believe his agenda will be?
I think his agenda is very much trying to push for his existing commercial interests. So he has a Shanghai Gigafactory for Tesla. A lot of his Optimus robots rely heavily on Chinese supply chains. I think trying to maintain that whole market and trying to continue to expand is probably one of his key interests. And I think the other one also is, how do you continue to leverage Chinese supply chains to bring down and drive down the hardware costs in the US, including in energy, including in the various supply components that go into manufacturing EVs and robots, from actuators to joints. And that, I think, will be very key to the ultimate rollout and adoption, right? So would you buy a humanoid if it's like $10,000 maybe, but if it's $6,000, the way a unitary robot is, you might want to bring it. And whoever can deploy robots faster will actually set the data flywheel. They can collect more data, their robots become smarter. And I think that is a very key advantage in the upcoming physical AI race.
That's what we've been doing. The United States has invested billions into AI infrastructure, not least here in the Gulf, including a major data center in the UAE and others in other countries around this region. Some of that infrastructure, of course, has come under somewhat of a threat during the conflict with Iran. I just wonder what the story is when it comes to the powering of the sort of AI stack, as it were. We've talked about chips. What you get here is energy, space, and opportunity. That's a story in the Gulf. How does that fit into what you're seeing in China?
Yeah, so China is very focused on abundant energy supply, and a lot of it is, I think, 1 in 4 gigawatts consumed last year were green and renewable sources. So China is, I think, very much trying to make sure that their energy supply can be constant and it can be cheap and it can be green, so that this will continue to drive, the very explosive energy demands of future AI development. They're watching what has happened in the Middle East, and I think they have seen that it is more better for national security, better for stability to have energy self-sufficiency. So I expect them to continue with their renewables push. There is obviously growing demand for that. And I think all this ties into China's overall AI playbook, right? Which is less of cutting edge frontier AI models that are super expensive and more of cheap, slightly less good, but very efficient AI that can be abundantly deployed all across, the population, and what we call ubiquitous edge intelligence. So I think this is what China is doing, and energy is a very key factor in their whole playbook. And this can't happen if you don't have stable, cheap energy.
Ubiquitous edge intelligence. Amazing. It's good to have you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And well worth reading that article, by the way.
Now, the AI rivalry between the U.S. and China is entering a new phase as the two superpowers race for dominance in artificial intelligence. A new report finds that the gap between them has now nearly vanished, despite U.S. chip restrictions. House Gold has our details.
And we're leading China in AI. And I'm going to go see President Xi in 2 weeks. I look forward to that. But I'll say I'm leading. We have very friendly competition.
That was President Trump recently commenting on the AI race between the U.S. and China. But according to Stanford's 2026 AI Index, produced by the university's Institute for Human-Centered Artificial Intelligence, the gap in AI performance between the two nations has now effectively closed.
The gap is very small, and then the US model will release and it'll perform a bit better, and then the Chinese models will catch up. And that's the trend that we have been seeing over the past year.
Take a look at this chart. American and Chinese AI models are now effectively neck and neck on key performance benchmarks. The report finds the US still leads in top-tier model releases. But China leads in research publications and robotics deployment. Many experts are closely monitoring the trend.
Robotics is an area where I think Chinese innovators have been doing phenomenally impressive work. There are some areas in which I think China has also arguably been leading the way. So in advanced video generation, for example, several Chinese models have been absolutely state-of-the-art.
The Stanford report also says the U.S. still invests far more money in the field than any other country. Private investment in the U.S. totaled more than $280 billion last year, about 23 times more than China's $12 billion.
In between 2024 and 2025, we saw almost double the corporate investment the private investment globally around the world. That is largely driven in the U.S., though other countries such as China do have more public investment.
China's DeepSeek recently unveiled its new model, V4. The startup took the global AI industry by storm last year with its groundbreaking release of the R1 model. It delivered near industry-leading performance at what DeepSeek said was a fraction of the cost. Unlike R1, which used NVIDIA chips, V4 is running on domestically produced chips, following restrictions on China's access to cutting-edge American chips, such as NVIDIA's Blackwell, under Washington's export controls.
And they've developed efficiency innovations to try to squeeze more performance out of less cutting-edge chips. And so in some ways, the export control constraints have forced Chinese companies to innovate in a unique way.
And unlike most American AI labs, many Chinese firms have also embraced an open source strategy, making their internal model weights available for anyone around the world.
Their strategy is build up a community ecosystem and try to take advantage of the network effects that come from building that open source ecosystem as a way to catch up.
Meanwhile, the White House is accusing Chinese AI firms of copying American models through what it calls industrial-scale campaigns. At the center of the allegations is a process known as distillation, a technique used to transfer knowledge from one model to another. But Beijing firmly rejecting the claims, saying such allegations are groundless and are deliberate attacks on China's development and progress in the AI industry. As the world's two largest economies push to dominate AI, the competition is only intensifying. Hadas Gold, CNN, New York.